Hi, Liying. It's beautiful to see you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Everyday Mystic.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. And we're going to get into talking about you and about your spiritual journey and how you guide others in their own awakening to the divine. And I know a big part of that guidance is through tea. And I was so excited to talk to you because I have uh, a loving relationship with tea. It's one of those things that really beautifully opens up my heart, and also I just love it. I mean, I all different types. Today I'm drinking genmai cha, and at the moment, yeah,
Yes.
and you, I know that you have some really deep relationships and also with some specific types of tea. So let's talk about that a little bit later.
Mhm.
I'm so appreciative of you coming into the space and into the listeners' sphere to share your beautiful wisdom and your insights. And before we get to anything like that, I'd love for you to share a bit about yourself. You know,
Yeah.
what
Sure.
sparked your own journey for you?
Mm. So, in my last iteration of my life, I was actually working in the media sphere. So, I was a beauty editor for a couple of years. That was literally my dream job. Really working in the world of luxury, flying around the world, interviewing amazing, incredible icons and celebrities and all of that. And from the outside, it really does seem like, oh wow, that is the jet setting life. That is it. But also, what was really happening within me wasn't something that I talked about a lot, and I struggled to really voice out my own truth. In all the ways, I didn't even really know who I was, to be honest. And so I was on the other side, the darker side of it was that I was struggling with anorexia for many, many years. And coming through from, you know, just such a lots of energy are coming through actually as I speak about this. So one of the worst times, I would say the lowest times of my life was that I had to be admitted into hospital. I had to be hooked up to IV drips and I had to be really monitored. And so that was a time that really was the first wake up call, I would say. And I didn't even know that there was something wrong with me, in that sense of like, oh, I don't need help. I can do this on my own. And the only reason why I sought help was also because my mom, who was such a dragon mom, like Asian mom, they are so tough and so, it's like soldier on, keep going. The first time I ever saw her cry was that moment when she asked me to go seek for help. And so that led me to many, many years of yo-yo recovery, because I think the foundational part of self-love wasn't really there. It was really about just get well, get eating again. A lot of that was happening in my experience. And so it led me to really go deep into this, I would call a rabbit hole of like trying to figure out what exactly is wrong with me. I think, like, why am I feeling like this? Why don't I feel like I belong anywhere? And so that was a moment of, a couple of years, actually 10 years of trying to figure things out on my own, which that's also why I never really recommend to anyone anymore. Like anyone who comes to me like, oh, I'm just trying to figure this out on my own. I always say like, if you can meet your teacher, if you meet a mentor, go ahead, take that leap and really understand that this is going to help you to collapse time in so many ways. So, long story short, I decided to go fully into recovery after 10 years of just, you know, yo-yoing, going back and forth. That was actually catalyzed by a health problem. And when that happened, when I decided 2 feet in, I also received an offer to work in Hong Kong. So I left my home country, Malaysia, to move to Hong Kong and started afresh. So I was able to recover fully when I was living there. Really, like starting from scratch. Nobody knew me. That was quite, like in hindsight, a blessing. And I got to a point where I was meditating, I was doing yoga, I was feeling the chi coming through my body again. And then one beautiful night when I was meditating, I noticed something, which was this awareness speaking to me, saying that, there's something about how you're living. There's something more that's out there. And I notice it again in my life where when I'm meditating, I feel like, oh, this is such an amazing feeling. Like I can astral travel, I can see so many beautiful things, and I feel so at peace. But once I step off the mat and out of the door, everything is like I am dependent on the circumstances, like how I feel on the day. It's like someone could ruin my day, like that sort of feeling.
Mm.
And so when that awareness came up, I remember I went down on my knees and actually just prayed to the universe. At that time, I was saying, like, I can feel it, but I don't know what it is. That I can feel something more is out there. Please show me a way. And the way presented itself in an invitation to a tea ceremony.
Mm.
And so that was the first time I experienced tea ceremony in the way that, in the lineage that I carry right now. And I'm so honored to do so, of course. And in that ceremony itself, what I can say is that, firstly, it was a feeling of coming home within. And this was huge because I have always been one to travel around the world, and I never felt like I belonged anywhere in that physical sense. And so to feel like I have finally returned home and that feeling of, this is home, that was really huge. And the second thing was, and this is my little bowl here. When I held the bowl up and I started to drink from the bowl, I could hear tea spirit speak to me. And it was a very clear mandate. And I call it a heavenly mandate nowadays. But back then, it was just really literally hearing her say, you have to drop everything you know and go and serve tea. And that was it, that was like literally me leaving behind that iteration of who I was, because I've all my life thought that I would work as an editor, I would work in newspapers and magazines, and then leaving all of that behind and pursuing that, the apprenticeship, and then eventually becoming a mentor myself. Now it's been, what a journey. It's just been incredible. So that's the
Wow.
gist.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. And not unlike so many others' journeys of where some real earthly struggle and challenge catapults you onto the path, right? And thankfully you were aware enough, your soul, I guess, being ready enough in this lifetime to say, okay, like I will go in this upward spiral rather than continue down the downward spiral, because there's choice, right? We could go either way in those moments. I'm
Well,
so
absolutely.
happy you chose the upward spiral, and sounds like tea was such a beautiful messenger, spirit messenger for you, and called you
Definitely.
forth. Yeah.
Definitely. It felt very much like even the journey to learn the way of tea, to open myself up to the way of tea, felt very divine. It was like, oh, okay, this happened. And then this door started to open. And then the next door opened. It was almost like, for me, it felt like I was taking steps in the dark, really, because I had no sense of what this was. And all I knew was that this feels so special. This is like love overflowing out of my entire body,
Mm.
and all I wanted was to learn. And I remember going back to the tea space and asking the woman who served the tea the other day, that day, and I said, "Look, I really want to learn everything. Just tell me how I can learn." And I remember to this day what she said. And she said, come and drink tea every day as much as you can, because it's only through drinking tea that you get to understand her language. You understand how she speaks to you. And this was actually the first step into really understanding that every transmission that tea has is very unique. And if you trace back to the older days when tea in ceremony was very much um, a very important and non-dispensable, indispensable affair in the Zen Buddhist monasteries. Disciple and master, they sit together with tea, and that was the transmission. That was it, you know. And so
Mm.
there's a saying in Zen where suchness is formless, you know, the what all that is formless. However, when there is something that gives form to it, that anchors that in, then the dharma can be transmitted, and that came in the form of tea. So it's such a huge lineage to really carry, you know. And when that unfolded, you know, I would say to everyone who's listening, and you know, just if you were wondering, it didn't feel like that when I first started. It literally just felt like, ah, this is a lot of love pouring through me, and I just can't get enough of it, you know? So, yeah.
So many people these days are talking about plant medicine and plant
Mm,
medicine journeys and plant medicine ceremonies and plant medicine initiations. And this is a plant and it's a
mm,
medicine, but obviously not commonly talked about as
yeah.
a plant medicine. That
Mhm.
grouping is relegated to, the psychedelics of the world. And yet this has had some profound effects, obviously, on you and for people for thousands and thousands of generations. And so what do you see as, I guess, some of those key messages? You've already mentioned love, that love just poured through you and that you couldn't get enough of it. What have been some of those key messages from this particular plant that
Mm,
you've received? And, maybe let's talk a little bit about kind of plant and plant medicine in general.
I love that. Firstly, this plant medicine is adaptogenic. So what that means is that it adapts to what your body needs. That's the most basic way of explaining that. So it's not like a psychedelic, and this is something I personally choose not to dive into psychedelics, and mainly that the reason why I don't is because I truly believe that we are all self healers, so to speak, quote unquote. Using healing as a word very, very lightly here, because I truly believe we're all whole and we're complete. And when we speak about healing, I'm just saying healing your perspective in terms of your wholeness, remembering your wholeness. Yes. So when it comes down to it, I would always come back to um, how can we come back to our original state, our original source of energy as energy. We are energy
Mhm.
beings. So tea is very beautiful in that sense because, and this is backed by many, many years of traditional Chinese medicine. Tea is a Shen tonic. So Shen means spirit. So Shen itself it's correlated to your heart. And there is always this saying that when your heart is closed, that's where you get into a state of trauma response in terms of how you respond to the world. And so when your heart opens up again, you know, with the help of a Shen tonic, you start to really come down into a more centered and anchored state of consciousness. And you actually start to open your body to feel the chi movements. And when chi actually flows, that's when healing happens. That's when you don't feel any stagnation that comes up physically as a form of sickness or pain or aches in your body. So that's a very physical sense of it. And but when we talk about really working with tea as a medicine, I'm speaking more towards how it is such a beautiful spirit that harnesses mainly four virtues. The first one is harmony. So, harmony within is harmony without. So, when you are in harmony with, for example, if you were cultivating a practice with tea every day, you're coming into harmony first with nature because tea carries the essence of nature. It carries the raindrops that came from the clouds maybe 2 weeks ago that's now in your water. It carries the essence from the roots and from the leaves that really encapsulate it. It really literally absorb the sunlight, the moonlight, and the starlight. Everything is within the leaf, and that is something maybe we could talk about later, where when it comes from indigenous origin and it's grown in such an alive way in a biodynamic environment, it really brings forth an expression that you can feel it literally lighting up all your senses. And we're talking about your physical senses and also the more astral senses. So that's harmony with nature, coming back into harmony with your true nature. Who are you within? Who are you really beyond this human construct? Who are you in the finite and the infinite self? So these two start to come into harmony and the harmonics start to play with each other. That's when you come into reverence. Reverence for yourself. Yes, as you walk as the sacred, you start to see everything as sacred. You start to treat people around you as the sacred. So it all comes back as you are the fractal of the divine ultimately. Yeah, there's only one of us here in the room. So then the third is purity. And this purity isn't something that's like the purest idea of what life should be, not perfection. It's not about that. It's more about cleaning out, cleaning out with, by honoring it with love, things that are no longer serving us, that we have outgrown. So a lot of times we always say in the tea room, the tea ceremony begins before the ceremony starts because 90% of Cha Dao, or the way of tea, is cleaning. We're cleaning the room, we're respecting the guests, we're respecting ourselves, we're respecting the ancestors, and tea, of course, with the cleaning. So purifying yourself within and not without. Yeah. So finally is tranquility, which is such a beautiful state. And sometimes it is literally translated as breaking open. You may have heard of I think it's a Rumi saying where, the light comes through the wound, yes, or where it breaks open, something like that. I can't remember literally now. You can remind me if you know anyone. But that's where we come into the heart space again. When the heart opens, when it breaks open, something can come in, and spirit is the one that will take up space again here. If we are closely guarded, we cannot allow anything to come in. If our bowl is full, we cannot fill it up with anything else. And it's the same thing. We empty it out to fill it up with something new. And it culminates to the ultimate spirit of tea ceremony, Ichigo Ichie, or Ichi Ihui in Chinese, one chance, one encounter. Every tea ceremony is the first and the last time we will sit together like this. Even if it means we will come back next week, you and I, it's not going to be the same because we are always shedding and we're always evolving. And the tea will taste different the next time, even if it's the same tea. Yeah, because your being is always evolving, like you said, spiraling. So when you come with a different experience or a different state of mind, it tastes different. It's quite extraordinary, actually. And then ultimately, it's the ordinary act of drinking tea. It's a deliberate non-doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of it, I think,
Mm.
to
It's
start off
so
with.
beautiful. And I love things that are so simple and yet so profound. right? That balance between those, or that shared energetic of simple and profound is I think it really lies at the heart of mysticism, because
Yes.
mysticism itself is so simple and yet
Mhm.
profound, that we
Yeah.
are the divine.
Yeah.
Simple, but we are the divine. Whoa, that is so profound. So it is
We see
these
the face
practices
in
that,
everything. Yeah. That's
yeah,
true. I
yeah.
also
And
think
so practices that really match that energy are connect us directly to it, right? We resonate with it.
yes. I love that you said that because besides from self cultivation, self mastery, it also connects us with each other. There are so many times that I have heard, my clients who are women, they come and tell me that, they had an argument or something was unsettling the relationship between them and their husband or their loved ones. And they just have a bowl of tea and sit together in silence. And then that feeling, that remembrance comes back, and then everything just doesn't matter anymore. Like the fight, the the need to be righteous, to be right, to be,
Mm.
like that I am right and you're wrong. It just melts away. And that's what it means to open the heart, I feel. And what you said is exactly that, connecting with each other as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as your journey, going back to you, and once you found tea and you answered the call, followed the path to apprenticing and stepping into this, um, what did that do for you in your life? What did you see unfold for yourself?
I felt like I was living my dharma. That was the first thing, and I really feel that too because it really feels like when we have a sense of purpose, it doesn't matter how stormy the days can get or how the journey to, especially when you're running your own business and you're trying to put something out there that's relatively new. It can get really difficult, I'm not going to lie, and can get really challenging as well. But this has always anchored me. There's never a doubt, and it just always strengthens my conviction in that sense of, in a way that's quite unique. It's not like an egoic kind of, I'm the best. It's never about that. T always has this teaching of, we are all so different, and if this holds so true for me, then the only way to share this is to share this from my heart and to share that from my own experience. And so it has allowed me to really become so honest about my life, with others, with myself. And first and foremost, of course, loving myself in such a deep, deep way that I've never experienced before. Like I said, anorexic, always pleasing others and just putting myself down and all of that. And as women, I feel that it's important to also say that it's quite interesting to come out from the other side in that sense and continuously evolving, of course, but just witnessing women that are still very much caught up in the narrative of, we can't outshine others, we cannot be the one to shine if there are others who are down and under, things like that. And not showing your love too much, otherwise they would think that you're easy to be taken advantage of, like all the things, all the conditionings that we've picked up through centuries, probably
Mm.
many timelines. um, they get to melt away because I can tell you that I would not choose to live otherwise. Like I would not choose any other way than this true, simple, it feels very simple but also very extraordinary, just feeling the divine so close, so here with me as well. Yeah. So
Yeah.
And this is really something really profoundly, sometimes it also brings me to tears because, like I said, like I've never felt that way. I remember the earliest memories in my life. I've always felt like, oh, I need to, seek for approval. Like I need to earn love. Like it's a huge thing. It's a huge, 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 huge thing. So yeah,
Yeah. To accept the energy of love and be open and receptive to that and tune to it because we
yeah,
are that, right? So we are love, and it's not about even in the end receiving it. It's just
yes,
being it, right?
exactly.
Being it will allow you to receive it because it's like the tune, you've tuned to it, right? You're like, yeah. So rather than seeking it somehow out here or through things or through others, we be it and then just allow it to flow through us and to us. And, we become this incredible conduit, right?
Exactly. And the most important thing is when you accept that you are the conduit, like you accept the fact that you are love, like you said, something really profound starts to happen. And this was what happened to me. I started to feel like literally I can look back in hindsight and say, okay, it's cosmic life force. But at that time, I had no idea what was going on. I just had lots of downloads and visions and like feelings and openings in my body. Um, and this is, I would say, it's like a very mystical experience. And what was really there again as an anchor was the tea, because it's so human or ordinary, like it's so earthly in that sense that, how do I say this? The ceremony itself, the tea medicine as a medicine can open up a lot of portals, no doubt. Yeah. There are many different genres of tea. So each one will move differently in you. And even in the genres, each tea is different. They have different personalities, different characteristics. But the ceremony itself, it encompasses all the elements of the earth, the
Mm,
five elements. And so when all of these are in interplay, you're sitting literally in the void, or we call it the unified field, where the limitless potential exists, pure potential exists. And yet you're also anchored into earth. So it's like you're so above, as above, so below. Yeah. You can literally see the vision, maybe, or you have imaginations coming through, dreams coming through, and that can be brought down here. And with the intention that you can harness with the ceremony, that can be expressed through with actions, the way you speak, the words you speak, all of that. So that's why I love this work, because it isn't just something, where we go really far out there. We do, but also we are here to express the new earth, right? We're not going somewhere to new earth. New earth is here. New
mhm,
earth is expressed through us. Yeah. So this
mhm.
is something I always constantly talk about in my work, because um that was shown to me in a very clear way that this has to be shared. And this is the moving poetry, the moving meditation that I can share it through. But we are all here, and the ceremony doesn't exist if we're not in it. This is
Mm,
something I always say: if the human is not in it, there's no ceremony. So we are also nature, and once we start to surrender
yeah,
to the truth of who we are, that's when everything, the way we see the world, the way we treat the world, the nature itself is so different. So yeah.
yeah. It is a great reminder to us all that we are nature. And
Hmm.
often, we talk about the power of nature and how nature's our greatest teacher and being in nature and how spiritual. and loving and healing that can be to be in nature. And yet we can go further with that concept to say we are nature, just like, oh yeah, we can connect to God and you can connect through practices and prayer. But when you start to actually meld with God and
Yeah.
realize that we're that spark of the divine and that fractal of the divine, as you said earlier, just like with nature being a fractal of nature, we are nature. It's a whole different experience of knowing and of being once you fully accept all of that. There's no separation anymore. It's
Yeah.
all oneness. And we are we don't have to put up, these walls or barriers or veils anymore. We can simply be in that true nature. And it brings me to tears too. I, I sit there sometimes and I'll just be watching birds or looking at a
Yeah.
tree swaying and just start to just,
I can cloud gaze all day as well. It's like, oh my God, look at that, look at that, look at that. You know, like, wow, this is so amazing.
yeah.
And that is pure luxury for me, the spaciousness inside of me and the spaciousness outside of me, the vastness, the mystery that we're living within. And we
Mhm.
are, we are that mystery actually. And one thing I really, really saw come to life for me is how beautiful it is. And this is something close to my heart because I've always, when I first tapped into meditation and stuff, I think like most of you probably feel that too, is that, oh, I discovered something called I'm a star seed. Okay, I'm a star seed. Okay, cool. Like I'm a light worker. Okay, cool. Like, and deepening into the practice has allowed me to, of course, access different timelines and seeing different life waves of being another version of me, in an alternate space. But ultimately, what's so beautiful is truly seeing this formless energy that is me, that is you, come down towards this density that we're in and start to take form, and realizing that we're infinite in this finite body, and then coming into pure wholeness because now we're not saying this is bad or this is so, you know, inadequate. In all the inadequacy, in all the imperfections, we are whole. Like, how beautiful that is? Like, I feel, oh my goodness, like, I can feel like there is no fear of death. There is no fear of aging. There's nothing like that. And it's so beautiful. Like, that is what tea has really opened me up to, like yeah, it's just incredible. It's just so beautiful to think about it, right? Like, like how society has such a way of saying, "Oh, you're getting old, so your time is running out." But like, hey, look back at the times when the ancient ones they revered their elders. Their elders were the one who carried the tradition, who were the ones who really shared so much wisdom, and we respected the elders in a huge way.
Mhm.
And I think that balance needs to come back, where we do not fear the yin so much, the darkness, what is not known. That's when we really can come into this, I don't know what you want to call it, but this consciousness of, I can only call it new earth, but literally just this multidimensional consciousness. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's where I feel like, as people who have really powerful means to access the cosmos or different timelines, Akashic records, we have to really take care of our bodies too. Like, this is the most important thing I think a lot of us forget about.
So
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
landing here in this body is very, very profound. It actually helps to elevate your consciousness in a huge way. And I think this goes back to a lot of my Buddhist teachers. I was at the Shaolin Temple last year that broke me open again. Yeah. And they love tea as well, which is so incredible. Um, I went in there with a fear, a tiny niggly fear that I didn't even know of failure, you know, and death. And I left feeling like, wow, I don't even, like, I see the beauty in all of this now. I see it. So,
What did you go there seeking?
mm, great question. It's one of those things as well. Like with tea, like I just landed on one of their videos, and there was this like, oh, I think I remember something here, but I'm not sure what it is. And the next thing you know, I was on the internet and I was just signing up for a retreat, a Qigong retreat to go there. And I knew it was going to be a rigorous training because the Shaolin monks are known for training physically and they call it from the earth up. So from the ground up. Their training is not from the cosmos up or cosmos down, it's from the ground up. So I knew I needed that in some ways. I don't know how and I don't know what it was. And I think I just went in there, the soul knew what
Mhm.
I needed. But my human, I all it's like what you said. All we need to do is tune in, listen, take the instructions, and go and take the actions, right? And
Yeah.
then all the other things will unfold. They will unfold for you
Mhm.
always,
Mhm. Yeah, it
right?
requires so much trust and so much surrender, which
Yes.
are, I think, two of the hardest things to experience or go fully into in this life. And so often, I think, because this construct here instills so much fear. It's not
Mm,
that we are just fearful
yeah.
by nature and, we're in, you can look at it from a biological sense. Oh, yeah, well, we had to fend off, predators and marauders and things, in our human lineage. And yes, yeah, that's true. But I also think we have perpetuated a ton of fear that doesn't need to be there, that is purely for the sake of stoking this fear fire that, isn't real. It's creating an
Mm,
illusion
yes.
of that. And so that we end up not being able to surrender because you're so fucking scared of what's going to happen because your nervous system is already in this state of fear, right?
Yeah, or like manic surrender, right? Like, are we done yet? Oh wait, wait, I've already surrendered. Like, when is it coming?
Yeah. Yeah. Or forced surrender where people and, they're hospitalized like, you were. They hit a rock bottom where it's like, if I'm going to survive, I've got to surrender, right? It's
Mhm.
oftentimes just forced on us because it's like, you've got to accept this. Like the universe is giving you this incredible gift and like you keep ignoring it and you keep shunning us and you keep pushing it aside and not just allowing and surrendering because you're scared. And so they put you in the most fearful space. You absolutely either have to say, okay, I surrender, or you do succumb, right?
Yeah, and that's where I really say, and I really, really mean it with so much love is that when it actually becomes physical, like when I was hospitalized, like it's like literally the universe is saying, stop, like stop, like come on, let's do this. Let's do this together. You gotta stop this. It's
Yeah.
like a real maybe I don't know final straw like in that sense even though you are a timeless eternal being and of course I have a beautiful client who said if I don't get it done this time I'll come back another time but it's true
Yeah.
um, However, you know, I truly feel that in order to surrender, we do have to move out of the what we call the sympathetic nervous system and move into parasympathetic nervous system, right? We have to regulate our nervous system. So even as I teach my clients, like, oftentimes the question is always like, how do I surrender? How do I stop the chatter in my mind? How do I, and this is very real, yeah? For example, if you were walking down the street, like you have learned from your conditioning and your nervous system has that imprint of like, okay, gotta watch out, gotta look around. And if someone just darts out, your immediate response would be like, right, like to fight or maybe like, ooh, right? So one of the most valuable lessons I actually learned physically when I was in a temple was that we have to start to lean into releasing into the unexpected force that is laid upon us, whether it's mental or physical. So, for example, if someone did come out and they did hold your hands, you
Mhm.
don't fight back with brute force because that's limited. You actually let yourself come in to your structure that you, of course, have to build and cultivate through time. But very minimally speaking, you lean into the structure. That force actually is absorbed into your body, and then you can move up from there, and that actually is your true essence, because that's where you come from, a centered point. You're not just fighting and moving through, and that's what surrender feels like. That's the easiest way I can almost describe it physically. It's like, okay, and then
Mhm.
go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So it's very real. Like we have to come into some sort of practice that allows us to drop into that parasympathetic nervous system where we calm down, where we recognize how it feels like to surrender. And that's why I love tea, because in ceremony that's what we do all the time. And then when you step out, you understand, I'm familiar with this sense of calmness, and I can return to it even when I'm speaking to someone who's maybe screaming at me. I can
Mhm.
still hold that stillness. So
Mhm.
it's very, very beautiful to be able
Yeah.
to do. Mm.
The practices, obviously, right? And like any practice is going to get us trained. And
Yes.
tea sounds like such a beautiful way to train the inner being, and as well as, the physical body, which is,
Mm.
even our whole physical is really an external, expression, right?
Mm.
What we're But it's a dance
Yes.
between those two well, many, not just two, but the different bodies that we are, these different energetic bodies and these different forms of ourself. And tea sounds like such a beautiful way to have that communication, and that, um, like you said, those four things, the harmony and the reverence, and, getting into that actual space together. When you work with tea, are you working with, because so many people call so many things tea. So is it purely the tea plant always?
Yeah. So this is usually what we know of in the scientific term Camellia sinensis. Of course, there are many different kinds that we will branch out to, but that's the main scientific term that we will use basically in introductions. Um, for me, first things first, that before I dive into this, is that I have no, I'm not a tea snob. So if you did serve me, the kind of tea that is not adhering to what I'm going to share in a bit, I will always accept it. That is one of the teachings of the way of tea as well, where we would always be we want to be the most loving guest and also the most loving host. It goes together, again, coming back to balance and harmony. So the tea, now I'm going to speak about the tea that I use in the ceremony and that I share with my clients when they come in to work with me in mentorship as well. Um, The tea itself comes from indigenous origins, and these are tea trees usually, even if they are a plant. And just to differentiate, a tree is, a tree, but a plant, it tends to grow almost like you can see pictures of them in bushes.
Mhm.
So they have a limit to how much they will grow upward. So ideally, I would work with what we call living tea. In Chinese, it's known as zheng cha or huo cha, meaning living. Um, or zheng means real tea, they call it. It's because these trees have been around at least for 300 years to 5,000 years. And that's as long as as the Chinese imperial empire has stood. That's pretty much that 5,000 year period. Those are incredible leaves. And these trees itself, they are also grown in a biodynamic environment. So meaning there are bugs and bees, they are in interaction with the trees. There are no chemicals, no fertilizers as well, so that the soil can grow very naturally, very organically. Because once you start putting fertilizers into the soil, what happens is that the soil's life will shorten, and ultimately that means more lands being, like being used and discarded, which doesn't serve Mother Earth, right? So we work with trees that are in those environments, and they have ample space to grow outward and upwards as well. So this is beautiful. It is their life, yeah. And this also means that the farmers themselves are artisans, and in fact, they honor the trees as their ancestors in Yunnan. They believe that they are born from these tea trees. And this actually really feels very much like infusing the sacred into each other. Like it's a symbiotic relationship that they have. So now the farmers, they honor how much harvest they will get this year. They won't push for it, unlike
Mhm.
other plantations where they have a very specific yield that they have to meet every season. This one is more like, okay, they can tell from the weather, this is how much we're going to get this year, and this is it. And so the of course the price for these teas are a lot higher. However, what we are working with is really to promote the artisanship, the ancestral wisdom, and also the trees that are quite frankly endangered, because there is so much possibilities of it being just taken out for the benefit of more mercenary reasons. So these are the trees that I work with, and the tea leaves themselves. One of the saying that I love is that, um, each side of the same tree have leaves that taste different, because each side will have a different amount of sunlight absorbed and rain absorbed and wind and all of that. So it's so incredible to taste that and feel that, and the roots that go so deep, thousands and thousands of years, the minerals. Wow, like you're literally yin and yang combined in that leaf. And if you didn't know, one leaf carries the whole DNA of the tree.
Mm.
So it's just like you, my love. It's like we are all fractals of the divine. We came from source. We carry the same complete DNA. And the leaf does the same thing too, which is so beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh, so
it
yeah,
is
that's
gorgeous.
the business. I
Mm.
can show you some here too. So you may not have seen this huge, like this is the size of the leaf that we would look at using
Oh
instead of
yeah.
the one bag, like these will open up into really huge leaves.
Mm.
That's what I work with. Yeah.
Mm,
So
beautiful.
I can speak forever about
Well,
it.
I'm so happy that we've had this time to go deep together on the beauty of tea, the messages from tea, the gifts from tea, that are here for all of us to experience and enjoy. And so, for listeners who've, uh, thought about tea as just a beverage or just a way to, get some caffeine in you, or your alternative to coffee when you decide to quit coffee, like it's not, it's none of those things and all of those things, right? But it deeply, from what we've discussed, it really is, it's nature and it's a spirit messenger for us
Yes.
to deliver that message of the divine. And such a beautiful way to do it when you're in ceremony with someone like you. So I can't wait to come to where you live and actually
Yeah.
sit in ceremony with you and be together in person. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today.
I am so happy we did this. Thank you for having me.
Do you have any final messages from you or from Tea or the cosmos that you want to leave listeners with?
Hmm. I literally just heard be love, be love, be love, be love, be love.
Mm, yes. Thank you, love.
Oop. Okay, you're back. You froze there a bit.